Okay guys, this is part 2. What is art? My goal for you is that you become a professional visual artist and that you sound like and have the understanding of a professional, not just a dilettante. Look the word up. So this second part of the first video of 2 parts will be an introduction to a group of 12 videos that will give you a comprehensive definition of the visual arts. That said, I would like to first lay down some groundwork with a few basic principles and understandings. Every profession has its own language with terms unique to that pursuit. Art is no different. Art is one of the most important and significant contributions of humans to culture and the history of humanity. We judge past cultures based on the level of sophistication of their art because all that usually remains of a past culture, besides their bones, are examples of their art. The following 3 basic principles apply to all forms of art: painting, sculpture, photography, dance, music, literature, film, and performance art. The 3 basic components of a work of art are: number 1, art is a language, a form of communication. Art is as important, significant, challenging, and essential to the education of every citizen as an education in science, mathematics, history, and language. Because art is a language, a very important language, a language that should be mastered and understood at least to the extent as we master the other subjects previously mentioned. Number 2, art is the creative expression of an idea. Artists, whether individually or in groups, feel the need to express their feelings and/or ideas with others, and frequently in a new and different way unique to their art form. Number 3, art is either fine or applied. I will discuss this extensively in future videos, but I will also say now that the fine arts expression of an idea is usually more personal and motivated by passion and intellect rather than competition or monetary reward. On the other hand, the applied arts is usually a more public expression of an idea, often benefiting the needs, wants, and desires of society. Let me continue. The following 3 characteristics of art are also common to all of the arts as well as the visual arts. They include subject, form, and content. Remember, art is a language. When you began to learn your native language growing up, you were first taught to speak the language. We do the same thing in art. In art, speaking art is making art. We start by making simple images that express simple thoughts and ideas. Young artists, like young people using a new language, are concerned with accumulating the basic skills of using language to be understood and to understand others. At first, we only comprehend and communicate simple and concrete thoughts and ideas. We use language, though, long before we have formal instruction in grammar. We do the same in art. In language, literal skills are developed first before we are able to comprehend and express more complex and abstract ideas. In art, we are first asked to draw things that we see and imagine. We may be introduced to many abstract ideas as children, but time, instruction, and experience are necessary to fully understand things like justice, fairness, friendship, loyalty, empathy, and the idea of a deity, just to mention a few. Skills in art making can take a great deal of time to develop, just as they do in any language. It is usually later in high school before we are expected to have enough of a mastery of our native spoken language before we are using words like metaphor, symbolism, allegory, hyperbole, satire, and analogy. It's the same in art. We can easily understand the what and the how in language, the language of art, but the hard part is getting to understand the why. In art, we call these the subject, form, and content. That's right, another list. Here are the three basic components of a work of art. Number one, subject. The what? A person, a place, a thing, or an idea. Number two, composition or form. The how. The arrangement of shapes and the other basic building blocks of the visual arts into a visually effective organization to express an idea. In the language of art, this is the alphabet and rules of grammar. I'll present a separate video for both the elements of art, the alphabet of the visual arts, and the principles of design, the rules of grammar for the visual arts. Number three, the why, the emotional or intellectual message of a work of art. Most young artists are as yet unaware of content in art. Their understanding of image making is initially mostly concerned with subject and/or technique. They're generally unaware of content in art. Part of my job is to help my students transcend this level to a more mature plane of understanding. I like to remind them that in making successful works of art, subject matter is almost irrelevant. Why is one work of the same subject inferior to another? Is it better technique? Sometimes that may be the case, and sometimes it is something less obvious. The analogy for content I like to use in order to explain the concept is to look in the mirror. Is that you? Should we judge you by that image and how you are dressed? Or is there something more we need to know to understand you? And how do you usually convey what is inside that person in the mirror to the world? A work of art is the same. It's not necessarily obvious by our first impression. With time and study, we gain familiarity and understanding of the less obvious content and unique character revealed in things below the surface. Just like you. Your appearance may be impressive, but the content of your character is far more important. The previously mentioned concepts of art are common to all of the arts, regardless of form. From now on, even in my new videos, when I refer to the arts, I will be speaking specifically of the visual arts. Thank you. The basics of art. Many, if not most, of the traditional components of Western civilization can be traced back to the Greeks. We have copied from them our form of government, architecture, sculpture, philosophy, mathematics, theater, and sport. For a better understanding of the purposes of art, it is important to understand the historical division of art by the Greeks into two main categories. The fine arts, considered the major arts or high art by the Greeks, and the applied arts, which they considered the minor arts. These classifications derive from the Greek belief that truly important art forms, the fine arts, are intellectually and spiritually imposing, not just utilitarian as in the applied arts. So what did the Greeks mean by intellectually and spiritually imposing in relation to works of art? Intellectually and spiritually imposing ideas are ideas that once we have heard about them, we cannot avoid thinking about them. These are ideas that force themselves upon you. You have to think about them. To the Greeks, these ideas would manifest themselves in their temples and statues created for veneration of their gods. We would today include similar ideas that are spiritual based or intellectual, like the idea of infinity or political and social ideas currently being debated throughout society. And what did the Greeks mean by utilitarian in relation to the arts? Simply stated, the Greeks appreciated good design for everyday useful objects, like pottery or the family sports utility chariot. Prior to the 19th century, there was little confusion concerning the word art. It was mostly fine and available only to the wealthy, royalty, or the church. With the massive growth of the middle classes due to the Industrial Revolution, and the advent of the modern era, about 1800 to 1960, and the invention/discovery of photography, that word art began to slowly take on a much different meaning. The artists were less concerned with reproducing nature and became more interested in a less literal, more open to interpretation, abstract expression of culture. At the same time, the applied arts began a slow but massive growth, fueled by continuing financial growth in the society at large. The public demanded more appealing products and the advertising to sell them. Before I finish, I'd like to mention two important words and concepts we use in the visual arts that are also used throughout the other arts: design and composition. These two words represent the organizing principles or structure of art. Here are their definitions. Listen carefully to the definitions and see if you notice something surprising. Design: arrangement of shapes and the other basic building blocks of the visual art into a visually effective organization to express an idea. This is a term used mainly in the applied arts. In the applied arts, design also implies a well thought out and accurate plan or idea or plan, committed to paper or a computer program that can be read and produced by a trained technician, as in a blueprint by an architect for a contractor. That's right, the artist is the person who creates ideas, not necessarily just things. Composition: arrangement of shapes and the other basic building blocks of the visual arts into a visually effective organization to express an idea. A term used mainly in the fine arts. How we fill the blank page or canvas. Well, what did you notice? That's right, they have exactly the same definition. They essentially mean the same thing. In the world of art, we like to use the word design in reference to the applied arts and the word composition in relation to the fine arts. So when we speak of the work of the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright, we speak of his amazing designs. And when we speak about the work of Leonardo da Vinci, we discuss his compositions. And that was not